Los Alamos National Laboratory, summer of 1950. 4 physicists walk out to lunch. Enrico Fermi, the man who built the first nuclear reactor. Edward Teller, Herbert York, Emil Konopinski. They are laughing about flying saucer cartoons in the morning paper. They sit down. They start eating. And then, without warning, Fermi goes quiet. He stares at the table for a long moment, and then he asks one question, just 4 words. Where is everybody? The table goes dead silent, because every man sitting there had already done the math in his head. The universe is old, the stars are many. We should not be alone. That was 75 years ago. We still have no answer. What happened at that table is the question that has haunted physics for 3/4 of a century. Not because Fermi was the first to ask it, because he was the first to do the math out loud. 400 billion stars in our galaxy alone. 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. 13.8 billion years for anybody to wake up, build a radio, and say hello. And in all that time, across all that sky, the universe has said exactly nothing back. That silence is not the absence of evidence. That silence is the evidence. And tonight we are going to read it the way Fermi would have read it. Not as poetry, as physics. Because the silence is telling us something specific. Something that by the end of this video, you will not be able to unhear. This is the great filter. And we are standing on it right now. So let us do what Fermi did at that lunch table. Not in his head, on paper, in English. In 1961, a young radio astronomer named Frank Drake sat down at Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia, picked up a piece of chalk, and wrote one equation on a blackboard. 7 variables, 7 multiplication. At the end, one number, the expected count of detectable civilizations in the Milky Way, right now, tonight. Here are the numbers, not the ones from a 1961 blackboard, the ones we have in 2024. Stars in our galaxy, 100 to 400 billion. Kepler Space Telescope data, 2013 release. Roughly 20% of those stars have a rocky planet sitting inside the liquid water zone. That alone is 20 to 80 billion Earth-like worlds in one galaxy, ours. Now plug in the pessimistic numbers. Say life only sparks on 1 planet in a billion. Say intelligence only emerges on 1 in 1,000 of those. Say only 1 in 1,000 intelligent species ever builds a radio. Multiply it out. The floor is 100, not the ceiling. The floor. Now the other number, since 1960, Project Ozma, Frank Drake again, pointing an 85-foot dish at 2 nearby stars, we have been listening 65 years. Breakthrough, listen. Allen Telescope Array, Parkes, Arecibo, before it collapsed in 2020. Detections? 0. Confirmed signals? 0. Even one unambiguous, huh? That is strange? 0. Do the ratio. Expected? 100. Detected? 0. The gap between what physics predicts and what the sky delivers is a factor of at least 10 to the 11th power. 100 billion missing civilizations. That is not rounding error. That is not we have not looked hard enough. That is nature screaming. Now I can feel what some of you are thinking right now. Great, another doom video. Another guy on YouTube telling me the world is ending. Stop. Listen carefully. I am not being a pessimist, I am being a physicist. There is a difference, and it matters more than almost anything else in this video. A pessimist decides the answer before looking at the data. A physicist looks at the data and reports what it says. That is the whole job. That is the only job. And what the data says tonight is uncomfortable. That is not a mood. That is a measurement. If your brain just tilted a little, if the idea that silence itself is a measurement just clicked into place, stay with me. Subscribe. No algorithm games. No smash that bell. Just this. If you want more silence decoded, one physics lens at a time, one click is the whole ask. I earn the rest. Because last week, we ended on a knife edge. If you were here for video 21, you remember the punchline. Life on Earth depends on a 104.5 degree accident inside a single water molecule. One bent angle. One quantum mechanical coincidence. Everything you love, oceans, blood, ice that floats, the cells in your eyes, reading this screen, all of it runs on that one geometry. And we ended on a question, an open one. If that 104.5 degree accident is rare across the cosmos, we got lucky. We are the winners. Galaxy is ours. But if it is common, then liquid water is common, and life-capable chemistry is common, and the silence means something very, very different. Tonight, I have the answer, and I have bad news. The 104.5 degree accident, based on every exoplanet atmosphere we have measured since 2013 James Webb spectra, TRAPPIST-1 atmosphere surveys, Kepler follow-ups is almost certainly common. Water worlds are normal. Life-capable chemistry is the default, not the exception, which means the silence is not because life is rare. The silence is because something is killing everyone who reaches this step, and we are on this step right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Great Filter. Door number 1. The Great Filter is already behind us. We walked through it. We do not even remember when. This is the good news scenario. And I need you to understand why, because the good news is also lonely news. Here is a theory. In 1983, a Cambridge cosmologist named Brandon Carter did something simple and devastating. He counted the steps. From dead rock to a physicist reading a script on YouTube, how many impossible biological steps are we looking at? The answer is 5, maybe 6. Step 1, dead chemistry becomes self-copying chemistry, abiogenesis. Earth sat sterile for about 600 million years. Then somehow RNA-like molecules started copying themselves. We have never reproduced this in a lab, not once, in 70 years of trying. Step 2, the cell gets a nucleus. This happened once in 4 billion years. One merger between 2 bacteria, and every plant, animal, fungus, and physicist on Earth descends from that one event. 1 in 4 billion years. Step 3, cells cooperate. Multicellularity. Took another 800 million years after the nucleus. Step 4, complex nervous systems. 500 million more. Step 5, symbolic language. Roughly 200,000 years ago, yesterday, in cosmic terms. Now here is the kill the mood part. If each of those steps is a 1 in 100 billion fluke, then the math closes. 100 billion star systems in our galaxy. 100 billion chances result. We are exactly one civilization. Us, alone, as expected. The silence makes sense. The night sky is empty because life is a statistical miracle. We are the winners of a lottery nobody else in the Milky Way bought a ticket for. I want to believe this. You want to believe this. Because if this is true, the danger is behind us. The 100 billion missing civilizations are missing because they never existed. We passed the filter billions of years ago and did not notice. We are not the deadest civilization. We are the only civilization, which means we are safe. There is one problem. The problem is named Copernicus. 500 years ago, a Polish priest did something nobody wanted to hear. He moved the Earth out of the center of the universe. And in doing that, he gave physics its single most dangerous assumption, one we have never, ever been able to break. It is called the Copernican principle. It has 3 words. We are average. Every time we have assumed we were special, we were wrong. Earth is not the center it orbits. The sun is not special. It is one of 400 billion. Our galaxy is not special. It is one of 2 trillion. Our chemistry is not special. The James Webb telescope keeps confirming water signatures on exoplanet atmospheres. Our biology is not special. Amino acids are on asteroids, in nebulae, on Titan. Every scale we look at, we are average. So here is the question that ruins possibility 1. If we are average and the hard steps math says only 1 in 100 billion civilizations makes it through, then what are we doing here? Think about that for a second. You cannot be both average and the winner of a lottery with 1 ticket sold per galaxy. Those 2 statements contradict each other. One of them has to be wrong. And Copernicus has a 500-year winning streak, which means if we are average, the hard steps explanation is wrong. The filter is not behind us. The filter is a statistical wall that kills almost every civilization that gets to where we are right now. Not 1 million years ago. Not 1 billion years ago. No, this is the kill shot. This is the door nobody wants to open. If the Copernican principle holds, and it always has, then the 100 billion missing civilizations are not missing because they never existed. They are missing because they got here to exactly this step of technology, to exactly this year on their planet's clock, and then something ended them. And statistically, we are not the exception. We are the next data point. Welcome to the filter ahead. Mechanism 1, the fast kill. Go back to that lunch table. Los Alamos, 1950. Enrico Fermi asked his question, where is everybody? And there is a reason that question came out of that mouth at that table in that year. 5 years earlier, the men at that table had built the first nuclear bomb. They had opened a door in physics that nothing on Earth had ever opened before. And the moment they opened it, a clock started ticking. Here is the mechanism, stated plainly. Any civilization advanced enough to be detected across interstellar distances is by definition advanced enough to destroy itself. Those two capabilities arrive on the same afternoon. Radio transmission, 1895. Nuclear weapons, 1945. 50 years, half a human lifetime between we can say hello to the stars and we can end ourselves by Tuesday, and it gets worse. Because physics does not stop. After fission came fusion. After fusion came engineered pathogens. CRISPR cost a few $100s now, not a few $100 million. After engineered pathogens came autonomous weapons. Each new capability is cheaper, faster, and requires fewer people to deploy. In 1945, ending the world required an entire nation and $2 billion. By 2025, the floor is a graduate student with a laptop and the wrong intent. Think of a toddler, a beautiful, curious toddler who has just been handed a live grenade. The toddler is not evil. The toddler is not stupid. The toddler is a toddler, and the grenade does not care about intent. That is us. Every young technological civilization, curious hands, adult-sized tools, a wisdom layer that evolves over millions of years, meeting a technology layer that doubles every 18 months. What the Great Filter Model predicts and what the galactic silence confirms is this. Almost every civilization that reaches our stage reaches it with the same asymmetry, fast tools, slow judgment, and the tools keep getting faster while the judgment barely moves. We are 65 years past Hiroshima. The nuclear arsenal today is 70 times more powerful than every weapon used in every war in human history combined. And the safety margin between a bad morning in a command center and the end of the broadcast is minutes. That is the fast kill. Loud, visible, decided in an afternoon. But it is not the most likely one. The most likely one is the one you do not notice happening. Mechanism 2, the slow kill. This one does not arrive in a flash. This one arrives in a graph. Every civilization we can imagine needs three things: energy, matter, and a stable place to put the waste. Call it the bathtub law. Water comes in, water goes out. As long as inflow and outflow match, the bathtub holds. The moment inflow exceeds outflow, the bathtub overflows. Not fast, not loud, just steady. And by the time the water is on the floor, the math has been broken for a long time. Here is what nobody in 1950 could measure, but we can measure now. Since the Industrial Revolution, humanity has injected roughly 1.7 trillion tons of carbon dioxide into a thin atmospheric shell that the biosphere spent 300 million years scrubbing clean. That is not an opinion. That is isotope chemistry. Ice cores from Vostok, tree rings from the bristlecone pines. The Keeling curve from Mauna Loa, measured every single day since 1958, 315 parts per million then, 425 parts per million today. That is one signal. There are dozens more. Topsoil lost 30% of Earth's arable land, degraded in 70 years. Freshwater aquifers, Ogallala, North China Plain, Central Valley, draining faster than geology can refill them on timescales of a human career, not a geological era. Insect biomass down 75% in 30 years across European transects. Ocean heat content at a 2,000-year high. You do not feel any of this in a single day. That is the entire problem. The fast kill triggers the amygdala, sirens, flashes, fear. The slow kill triggers nothing. It is below the floor of human perception. You cannot smell a tenth of a degree. You cannot taste a part per million. You cannot see a population collapse until the fish are gone. This is the great filter's most elegant weapon. Not a bomb, a thermostat, dialed one notch at a time, over 200 years, by a species whose typical scroll session is shorter than this sentence. And here is the part that should keep you up tonight. Every civilization that reaches radio-capable technology by the physics we can write down will arrive at this exact problem at roughly the same step of its development, same stage, same asymmetry, same bathtub. Most of them will not close the loop in time, and that not the bomb is the most likely reason the sky is silent. We have named the fast kill. We have named the slow kill. 2 doors. Both open, both already inside our walls. But there is one more. And this one is worse than both. Because this one does not need a war, does not need a climate, does not need us to do anything at all. Mechanism 3, the invisible kill. This one is the quietest. This one is the most elegant. And this one is the only mechanism on the list that does not require a single human being to do a single thing wrong. Here is the idea, and I want you to hold it carefully. A civilization does not need to be blown up to go silent. It does not need to overheat. It only needs to stop being able to think clearly enough to act. Every civilization advanced enough to build a radio is, by the same physics, advanced enough to build a mirror, a feedback loop, a machine that learns what keeps you looking at it and then keeps you looking at it. We built that mirror about 15 years ago, and since then, something measurable has happened. Not an opinion, a measurement. Attention span on long-form text, down. Book reading in adults under 30, down. Sustained focus on a single task beyond 40 seconds, down. Trust in shared reality across any 2 strangers, down. Rate of new foundational scientific breakthroughs per dollar of research spending, the Bloom et al. Stanford paper, 2020 down by a factor of more than an order of magnitude since the 1930s. A civilization that can no longer hold a thought for 40 seconds cannot build a fusion reactor, cannot close a carbon loop, cannot coordinate against a pandemic, cannot write a treaty that survives a news cycle. It does not die. It just stops solving. Think of it this way. The fast kill is a grenade. The slow kill is a thermostat. The invisible kill is a hall of mirrors. And the civilization wanders inside it, admiring reflections, while the actual house burns down outside. Nobody pushed the button. Nobody overheated the bath. Everybody was just looking at a screen. And here is the part that the great filter model predicts, and the silence confirms. Every civilization that reaches our step of technology will build, inside the first half-century of broadcast-capable electronics, a machine that optimizes for attention. Because attention is where the economy lives. Because the physics of information economies makes it inevitable. Most of them will not solve that machine in time. Most of them will enter the hall of mirrors and never come out. That is the third door. That is the one nobody in 1950 could have imagined, because in 1950, the mirror did not exist yet. We built it. We stepped inside. And the clock started ticking. So the only question left is where we are standing right now. Stop. I want you to do something with me right now. Not a thought experiment, a measurement. Think about the last 48 hours of your life. Not your highlights, not your plans, the minutes. How many of them were spent inside a screen, scrolling, clicking, refreshing, reacting? And how many of them were spent on something that will still matter to you in a year? Do not answer out loud. Just notice the number. That number, that ratio, is not a personal failing. That is the mirror test. That is the great filter asking you directly which side of it you are on. Because here is what the physics says. You do not cross the filter as a species. You cross it as individuals who still know how to hold a thought, and the species is made of you. Now look at the broader picture. Look at the fast kill nuclear warheads at hair trigger alert in 2025. More warheads in more hands than at any point since the Cold War ended. Look at the slow kill, 425 parts per million and rising. The Keeling curve not bending, the loop not closing. Look at the invisible kill, billions of human beings, every morning opening the same machine that optimizes for their inability to focus. All three doors are open, all three are inside our walls, all three are running at the same time right now, on the same planet, on the same clock. This is the mirror test. This is the moment in every civilization's life where it finds out what it actually is. And I will tell you something as a physicist, not as a pessimist, as a physicist, because the distinction still matters. The math does not require us to lose. The math says most civilizations lose. It does not say all of them. A floor of 100 missing civilizations is a floor, not a ceiling. Somewhere in that 10 to the 11th dark number, there may be survivors, quiet ones, ones who learned to close the loop, dismantle the hall of mirrors, and put the grenade back down. We do not know if we are one of them yet, but we will know, and soon, because the mirror test has a short timer. Every sign on every dashboard says this century is the test, which means the one question worth asking is not the one Fermi asked at that lunch table. He asked, where is everybody? That is the wrong question for us. The right question, the one Fermi never lived to ask, is this. The right question is not where is everybody. The right question is, what did the survivors do differently? Because if the great filter is real and the silence says it is, then somewhere in the dark between the stars, there are probably a few, not many, but a few quiet civilizations that walked up to exactly this step, looked at exactly these three doors, and found a way through. We cannot hear them. That is the point. The ones who made it are the ones who learned on purpose not to broadcast. This is what I call the survivor math. And the math starts with a rule Fermi never stated, because in 1950, nobody needed to. Rule 1, every advanced civilization reaches a chess endgame, not the opening. The opening is easy. You build fire, you build agriculture, you build radio, not the middle game. The middle game is loud, industrial, obvious. The end game, where most of the pieces are already on the board, and the wrong move in the wrong century ends the match. We are in the end game right now. Humanity hit move. One of the end game, the day Fermi's bomb went off in the Trinity Desert, July 16th, 1945. That is the clock. Rule 2, in a chess endgame, most players lose. The math of endgames is merciless. One bad move, one distraction, one moment of tilt, and the game is over. A grandmaster does not play the endgame faster than a beginner. A grandmaster plays it slower, more carefully, with a completely different kind of attention. That is the first thing every survivor civilization figures out. The end game is not won by speed. It is won by the quality of attention the civilization can bring to each move. Look at where we are on that rule. The Hall of Mirrors, that third door, the one nobody in 1950 could have imagined, is literally a civilization-scale attention destruction machine. We are playing the most important chess endgame our species has ever faced, and we have built a machine whose entire purpose is to make us unable to look at the board. That is the problem stated clean. That is also where the exit ramp begins. Because if the mechanism of the filter is attention collapse, then the mechanism of the survival is attention restoration. And that, unlike almost anything else about the great filter, is a thing a single human being can start doing before the end of this video. So picture the survivor civilization for a second. The quiet one, the one that figured this out 1 million years before we did, or is figuring it out right now on a planet whose star we have not named yet. What does it look like? What would we see if we could see it? Here is what the survivor math predicts. 3 signatures. Every civilization that crosses the filter will have all 3. Every civilization that does not will be missing at least 1. Signature 1, it closed the bathtub. It learned to match inflow to outflow, energy, matter, waste. Not as a slogan, as physics. Every survivor civilization will have, by the time it gets quiet, rebuilt its relationship to its biosphere from extraction to circulation. The grenade is put down, the thermostat is stabilized, the waste loop closes. We are not there yet. But the math says it is possible because the physics of circular systems is well understood, and the only missing ingredient is time and coordination. Signature 2. It broke the mirror, not smashed it, reclaimed it. A survivor civilization is one that figured out, before it was too late, that the machine optimizing for its attention was also the machine destroying its ability to make civilizational scale decisions. It built guardrails. It built cultural immune responses. It relearned slow thinking, deep reading, long silence, multi-decade planning as a survival trait, not a nostalgic hobby. This is the one most fully inside your control right now. Every hour you spend on something that will still matter to you, in a year you are personally adding 1 vote to signature 2, not metaphorically, literally. The species is made of hours, and the hours are yours, signature 3. It chose the lighthouse, not the loudspeaker. Every young civilization broadcasts. It cannot help it. Radio leaks, television leaks, radar leaks. But the survivors, somewhere in their endgame, make a decision not to go silent from fear, to go intentional from wisdom. They stop shouting into the dark. They start building something that lasts: knowledge, culture, code, institutions that a successor generation can still read 1,000 years from now. Those are the 3 signatures. And here is the part that should change the way you breathe. Every one of them, every single one starts inside a single human head, starts inside yours. The first move is not what you think. It is not recycling. It is not writing a senator. It is not signing a petition. Those things matter, but they are not the first move. They are downstream. The first move, mathematically, is the one that unlocks every other move. Physicists have a name for this. We call it a leverage point. In a complex system, a reactor, a climate, a civilization, there is usually one variable that, if you move it, cascades through every other variable. You do not solve the system by solving every equation. You solve it by finding the one that moves the rest. For the great filter, we already know which one it is. The 3 mechanisms, fast kill, slow kill, invisible kill, are not equal. The invisible kill is upstream of the other 2, because a species that cannot think clearly for 40 seconds cannot close a carbon loop, cannot negotiate a nuclear treaty, cannot build a guardrail around its own most powerful technology. Every downstream survival move depends on the upstream capacity to pay attention long enough to make it, which means the first move, the one that unlocks everything else, is not out there. It is inside your skull. It is the circuit breaker between you and the machine in your pocket. Here is the protocol, not a slogan, a protocol. 3 parts, measurable, starts tonight. Part 1, 90 minutes a day, 1 block, phone in another room, not on silent, in another room. This is the block where you do the work that will still matter to you in a year. Writing, reading, building, talking to a human face-to-face. Research, code. The physics of cognition is clear. Context switching costs roughly 23 minutes per interruption. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine, 2008, replicated many times since. 90 uninterrupted minutes is not a productivity tip. It is the minimum unit of civilizational thinking. Part 2, 1 hour of offline input per day. Book, long article, printed page, long conversation. The goal is not information. The goal is to retrain the nervous system to hold a thread for longer than a scroll. Part 3, 1 full day a week, no fee. Not no internet, no fee. No infinite scroll, no recommendation engine, no algorithm picking your next thought for you. That is the first move. 3 parts, free, available tonight. And every civilization that makes it across the filter, everyone has some version of it built in. I want you to do something for the next 90 seconds, not later. Now, before I finish this sentence, you are going to make 1 decision, and the math of your life is going to change by a very small, very real amount. Here is the decision. When this video ends, you will do one of 2 things. Either your thumb will move on its own, down, up into the next autoplay. into the next scroll, and the 90 minutes you are going to reclaim tonight will quietly not happen. Or you will do something else. You will close the app, physically close it, put the device face down. Walk into the next room, pick up a pen, a book, a guitar, a child, a conversation, and spend the next 90 minutes on the one thing that will still matter to you in a year, not a week. A year. That is the test. That is the whole test. I am a physicist, and I have to tell you something honestly. I do not know if we make it. The math does not say we make it. The math says most civilizations at our step do not make it, and the silence across 100 billion stars is the receipt, but the math also does not say we do not make it. The floor is 100 missing. The ceiling is open. And here is the only part of the whole model that your single human life can touch. The species is not an abstraction. The species is a pile of hours, billions of them, lived by billions of people every day. And every hour that gets reclaimed from the mirror and put toward the loop, toward closing the bathtub, toward breaking the mirror, toward building the lighthouse, moves the aggregate by exactly that amount. You are not going to save civilization in the next 90 minutes. Nobody is asking you to. You are being asked to cast one vote, one measurable, auditable, tonight, not someday vote for the version of the species that crosses the filter instead of the version that does not. That is the personal inflection. That is where the math meets your thumb. And the clock starts the moment I stop talking. Objection 1. I cannot put my phone in another room. My job requires me to be reachable. Good. Real objection. The answer is not 90 minutes. The answer is whatever block your life actually allows. 20 minutes, uninterrupted, once a day, is already above the civilizational floor. The protocol is a ceiling to aim at, not a gate to pass. The only non-negotiable variable is the word uninterrupted. 2 minutes of real attention beats 2 hours of fragmented attention every time. Gloria Marx data, not my opinion. Objection 2. I am one person. My 90 minutes do not matter at civilizational scale. Also correct at the individual level and completely wrong at the aggregate level. The mirror was not built by one person. It was built by billions of people, each one handing over an average of several hours a day, every day, for more than a decade. That is how a civilization scale attention machine gets powered, not by a villain, by an aggregate. The exit is the same shape, billions of people, each one reclaiming a measurable block, every day. You are not being asked to save civilization. You are being asked to move one grain on a scale that only moves by grains. Objection 3. What about the people who cannot do this, the ones with no time, no margin, no choice? This is the right objection. And the honest answer is, the first move is for the people who can. That is what a leverage point means. The few who can pay attention must do so on behalf of the many who right now cannot. That is not a burden. That is the job description of anyone who still has the option. If you are watching this, you have the option, which means the move is yours. So here is where we actually are. 3 doors are open, 3 mechanisms are running. 10 to the 11th missing civilizations are the receipt. And the clock, the Fermi clock, started July 16th, 1945, has not stopped ticking. But the math is not closed yet. The floor is 100. The ceiling is open. The signatures of the ones who made it are things a single human head can start building tonight. And the leverage point, the one variable upstream of every other survival move, is the 90 minutes between your eyes and the screen in your hand. That is the whole model. Physics. No gloss. No dogma. The only question left is whether we were the crew on the ship or the wake behind it. And that question is answered by you in the next 90 minutes. Los Alamos, 1950, 4 physicists at a lunch table. One question, where is everybody? And 75 years of silence for an answer. Here's the thing Fermi never got to hear. The silence is not empty. The silence is a test. 3 doors, fast, slow, invisible, and a 10 to the 11th receipt that most civilizations at our step do not walk through. The floor is 100 missing. The ceiling is open. And the only variable you control is the next 90 minutes. So here is the ask. If this video changed the way you look at the sky, hit subscribe. Not for the algorithm, for the series. Next week, we open the 4th door, the one even physicists are afraid to name. And tonight, close the app. Walk into the next room. Cast your vote. The silence is waiting. Be the answer.